I want to talk about a third way of creating openings, and that is modeling things in place in Revit. It's a skill we probably don't spend enough time in construction docs understanding. But for example, windows. If I wanted to solve the problem of placing a rectangular window and I knew its size, remember we modeled this wall, we edited the profile so that we created a number of openings within the wall. But let's say, let's go back to that south elevation, right, and examine that profile. And if we know the window of the opening, let's call it opening generically, to be 10 feet high by 6.5 feet wide, we could model place a window. Windows are hosted by walls. So let's a fixed window. We would duplicate a type and make it so we need one that's 6 by 10, 6. That's just the label. That isn't going to create this. So the height is 6'6". The width, no, the height is 10'6". The width of the window is 6'6". Don't know what the sill is, but we'll place it visually. So now I have a fixed window that size, and I could place it in the facade. Say another, we thought another one existed here. So this is a good way of modeling, or one way of modeling that opening, because it creates from the window family the nested elements of a window, including the frame and the glass and the stuff within it. If we wanted to create a custom opening, like if we needed an arch window, it's a more difficult proposition if we don't have a family for an arched window. Let's go to a 3D. Let's go to the 3D view. I believe I started this already. We'll open the default. So there's our window. It looks a lot like the other openings, except that it has glass. Now, if I shade this, it's the only opening that has a pane of glass within it. So let's go back to hidden line. And let's say, so I need an arch opening that looks like that. And I want to create additional ones on this face, on this wall. So what I would do here, I need to draw in 3D on that wall. First thing I need to do is set what's called a work plane. Because by default, I'm drawing on a level. I'm drawing horizontally on a plane on the ground. So I can select a plane right? Show that plane. So that now that becomes where I'm working. That's the work plane, what I'm drawing on. Let's turn shadows off. So the tool I want to demonstrate is called component model in place. Model in place prompts me to select from a family category, and I'm going to select from a family window so it knows something about it. Most importantly, it knows that it will be hosted by a wall. Click OK. And I'm going to call it arched window. Doesn't matter. I'm going to model it as an opening. Actually, now that I think of it, I didn't need to set that work plane if I choose opening. But let's go ahead and select that wall. That wall is going to be where I want the opening. And notice that it shifted, translated that work plane to the back of the wall. That's okay. Now I'm going to model the shape. So I'm drawing on that facade. I think I remember it to be roughly look at that, 11 feet. Don't remember the height. The height was more like 12.6. And the top wants to be, now I'm drawing, you gotta be careful when you're doing this. I'm drawing in a 3D parallel mode. But because I know what my work plane is, and then I'm going to draw that half round arch. Right? And then when I finish that drawing, that's what I've created. Now, it doesn't look to be as tall as I need it to be. So let's go back. Oh, and then finish model, and then it shows you if I turn shadows on, you can see. Did I finish the model? Okay, so that's my opening. Right? Let's see what the properties of these are. These are, remember, they're just profile of the wall. 17.6 in height. So the long end. So I'm going to take that which I just modeled and edit it in place. Now, I got it selected here. Edit in place. Select the outline. Edit sketch. Reveals sketch edit mode. What did we say this was? This needed to be 17.6 height. Select that line. In order to set it, I'm going to have to delete this so I can reveal that height inference 17.6. I'm just making it like the other one, and then go ahead and draw the arch back. Finish model. Windows up a bit high, but the beauty of that is that it allows you to set elevation from level because it's a window. I can control that. I want that to be -1. Move it up or down, whatever. So that's another way of making that opening. I'm reticent to go too deep into the details of creating these things because that's quite a bit of, it's a huge building and there's quite a bit of work to do. So I'm going to continue. I'm showing strategies of creating, sort of openings in these spaces. And there's no lack of openings inside the courtyard as well, which hasn't started. Now, a few things I've noticed. The second floor slab there should cover the arcade. So I'm going to edit that boundary, the boundary of that floor. And let's go to level 2 so we can see it in context. Right. So that floor really comes out here beyond the columns. It might be aligned with that wall. Right. Select those sketch lines, drag them over the columns. So sometimes you have to go in and, in hindsight, sort of fix things that you've done before. We still haven't dealt with the vaulted cross vaults underneath all that, and that's going to be a little bit more complex. And it looks like we have some columns that don't quite line up. Right? I don't know how I want to deal with that just yet. Maybe, well, probably I want to push that floor profile over those columns. And then when I finish editing that, I'm going to say, don't attach that. There's plenty of time to do that afterwards. So now when I go back to my 3D view, you can see the modification that I performed. That's the space under the arcade. And if the cross vaults are important to us, we'll have, and those arches are important to us, we'll have to deal with that. So there's also a balustrade along the perimeter of that outdoor space, otherwise people would fall into it, right? Let's look at this. So those are openings, right? So somehow or other, we're either creating rectangular windows or window openings or window elements that have glazing themselves. Now, again, we're just prototyping the inside insofar as we need to sort of simulate being inside that space. So let me pause this and pull up some elevations that are going to reveal what this facade along Boylston Street is going to look like. So let's pause the recording. So I have another folder that has permit images that I researched from inspectional services in Boston. I'm going to open up one of them to just sort of try to scroll through them. So they did some work on the interior that required them to file plans. So as a result, some of the building elevations were documented. So they're describing, let's see if we can zoom. Right, so this would be a useful drawing number, page 4, be useful to have in the model. South Courtyard as well, right? So all the windows. The West Courtyard, look at this, we have a typical window drawing. There's some distortion in this drawing. So they're describing, right? So think of it, we're representing a pretty elaborate window system that goes into the stone facade by representing it as a rectangular opening. It's actually very little glass in there. We could but it looks like the pattern of how that window is constructed is typical for windows like it, regardless of their size, right? They all have this keystone at the top. This actually gives us, this is a sectional view through the arcade, right? So what we're looking at in elevation are the tops of the pilasters that are engaged in the wall. So let's see if we can get this drawing into our model. So this one is page 5. Let's see if there are any other ones. Here's a close-up. There's some details of the roof. It's a pretty elaborate, a pretty complete descriptive details of what's going on up there. Okay, let's not get distracted. This is about openings. So let's make it a point to bring in drawing 5 and drawing 4. Let's talk about what it is that we're looking at. North Courtyard elevation. That is actually I believe that's south facing. Let's make sure of that. So if we're inside the library, the east, that east elevation, look at the drawing, it's actually telling us the outlining the elevational points of the courtyard and the arcade. So that's page 4. Let's go to the model. Maybe it's a good time to start placing elevation markers on the interior here. So let's drop in elevation, building elevation. Right? We have an interior elevation symbol as well. So I'm going to drop this in the middle of the courtyard. And then turn on all 4 elevations. And let's see which one is which. That one is 1D, and I'm going to say that is the that one is 1B. We're going to match them up with, let's look at the images again. East courtyard elevation, what are they calling? Balcony over that. I'm going to say that is that view. So 1A, let's rename it. Courtyard. I think that's right. I'm not, I can't be 100% sure. North stair tower. North Courtyard. So this one's going to be looking toward, I'm going to say that's at the back of the Dartmouth Street side. Go to the model. One D. Yard. North, east. By process of elimination, that one's got to be West Courtyard. And finally, that one 1B's got to be the South Courtyard. Let's go to a site plan, Google, and see how that sits with. Let's go to open browser. It's loading browser settings. Dartmouth. Copy to. So it looks like Dartmouth runs north-south. And Boylston, north elevation is Boylston Street. That seem right? North Courtyard, south. Yeah. So we just need to relabel north, south, east, and west because this is really the south of the building. It's called east. It's good to organize these things and get them, keep them in order. So I'm going to pause the recording and fix that stuff, and then we're going to continue to bring in the elevational drawings and scale them. So I renamed that elevation, north elevation, Boylston. This one I'm going to rename south elevation, Legend Street. And that elevation is actually east elevation is at Dartmouth. And last but not least would be what was previously north is the west elevation. And of course, that borders the new wing. So I'm just going to call this new wing. We're not representing that here because we're not dealing with that part of the building. All right. Let's go to the permit images and give them some more meaningful names. Page 4 is going to be the north courtyard elevation. Rename. Elevation north courtyard. Now there's more than one drawing on that page. Looks like I've done this already. Elevation south court. Yeah. Creature of habit, I guess. Let's start with this really big one, west courtyard elevation. That's going to be that one. Let's go to that view, go to elevation view. And notice that it, by default, it crops the view to the scope line, the extent of the scope line. So I'm just going to drag out the extent of that view. Right? And bring in the image that we need here. If you've followed along this far, that's admirable. I think many of you probably aren't going to agonize through watching me figure all this out, and you can take the model and do what you will with it. But you'd benefit from being able to understand how to go about prototyping the space, or enough of the space that you could represent what your design idea. So for example, I think Kalina is going to be representing wayfinding, and so some kind of representation of the narrative from Dartmouth Street to through the entry of the building and how we get into up to the space is going to be necessary. ISD permit images. Elevation courtyard, west courtyard. Right. Drawing is way big. One thing I could do temporarily is not to crop the views. Go to view extents and say, don't crop the view. Let me crop it later after I figure out. So we need to know what the distance is across. Let's see if we can figure this out. From wall to wall inside the arcade, we have, zoom out a bit. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 intervals, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I need to measure from that inside face. So here's why those exterior walls were important. I've got 132 feet here. So this drawing has to be scaled to that dimension size. One 32. I'm going to adjust the visibility graphics for the model. %, whoops, transparency to the floors and walls. I'll leave the columns for now. Now I can drag this into place. If I've scaled this correctly, it should fit right inside column intervals. Maybe the level is a bit high. Okay, but basically this is going to tell us what we need for openings on this side. Right now, if we modeled the opening correctly, I can take the window that I already made, architecture window, sorry, component, place a component. There's an arched window that we created, so I can drag that. I'm not sure why that isn't working just yet. 6 by 10, 6 was a large opening that we had outside. Pause this for a minute. Okay, so in order to finish reasonably a theme in this lesson, I'm going to limit what we do here to just sort of placing these elevation images in the background, the places that we have to model. So I think everybody understands that this was a matter of organizing the elevational views. We can also use this to model the roof if we want to do that. Let's see what other images we need to place. The east courtyard, which is going to be on the opposite side of that. So let's go to level 1. Go to the view, defined by that section. I'm not going to bother with the scope of the boundaries. I'm just going to uncheck crop view. Right? And I'm going to insert into this drawing the east courtyard elevation. And I'm going to make a similar analysis that is, measure the distance between the north and south arcade, the inner boundaries of all that. So that distance is going to be in the model, or let's change the visibility graphics. So we want to walls. Floors. Just take these elevation bullets and let's measure the inside wall. Those are the boundaries, right? Not a surprise, 132 feet. We're going to take this drawing and resize it. So from there to here is 132. Okay. That should be the right size. I ought to be able to now take that image and push it behind where it belongs. People may be wondering, boy, this seems like a lot of work, and you're right, it is. remember, we can see through the columns, so all of these are looking through. Okay, so I'm going to save this model as lesson 5. Organizing elevations. And this is a really important step in this model, because without this, we wouldn't have any of this stuff in place. And remember, we've only modeled up to the underside of roof here. But I think we're pretty comfortable with the integrity of, where the levels are. Everything appears to be where it belongs. Maybe level 2. No, that's about in the right place, because you can see beyond what we're looking at is a ledge. I called it a balustrade, but it's not a balustrade. It's just a ledge wall that runs along that. But that's going to help us with the openings on that facade, right? And it's going to go a lot more quickly than I'm proceeding right now, because there's a lot of symmetry, and we'll be able to leverage that. I got the image selected here. I suspect those columns are going to line up with the opaque intervals in between. Okay, let's see what elevations we're missing. East Courtyard, east elevation, Dartmouth Street. We have that. North Courtyard. Okay, we don't have anything there yet, and I know we have that drawing. Uncheck crop view so that we can place the North Courtyard elevation. Insert. Image. Elevation North Courtyard. So that's a copy of the other drawing. So we could have scaled it. So let's see what the distance is in the model. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's measure. Set visibility graphics. See through. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then some. Let's dimension that. That wall. That wall. "99 feet, 6 inches. So we need to scale that drawing. From here. There is 99.6. That's pretty good, right? Maybe our columns are a little out of place, but for the most part, save this file. um, East elevation, Dartmouth Street, yeah. East Courtyard, we have that in place. North Courtyard, we have in place. South Courtyard, we don't have yet. And this will be the last elevation that we place. Let's make sure that we have an image for it. South Court, yeah. Let's go in visibility graphics and just walls 50%. Insert. South Court. I remember the dimension from the north court, so we're simply going to take that, this drawing, scale it to 99.6. $99.6. Let's put it where it belongs. Roughly there. The extended side is over there, right? It's nice when that works out. Okay, there's a lot of building that it's simply haven't modeled yet. We'll deal with that later, but at this point, we have a good idea of what the window openings are going to be. In the next lesson, we'll talk about a third way of modeling windows, and that I find really, really convenient, but a little bit more difficult. It's called using curtain wall. It allows you to modify the shape of a curtain wall and embed it within an exterior wall, so you have a great deal of flexibility over the shape of the window. Again, we're just prototyping the opening. So file, save here. Organizing elevation. So models, for all intents and purposes, most of the data that we need to complete the model is in the model and is arranged where it belongs. Okay.